Trade, who is sponsoring this all candidates debate this evening. It's wonderful to see so many people out here so early in the campaign. Only 4 of the 5 candidates for our riding in Kitchener-Conestoga are here tonight. We extended an invitation to Nazir Abdul from the Green Party, but he couldn't come owing to a conflict in his scheduling. The candidates here tonight will have up to 4 minutes to make opening remarks. The order of presentation of these remarks was determined by a random draw about 4 minutes ago. You'll hear a bell ring, where there's 30 seconds left in the opening statements, and then if the statement goes to 4 minutes full, another bell will ring and the statement will be ended. We'll then open up the debate for questions from the public. We are not taking oral questions from the floor tonight, but if you have written questions, and I've already got 2, just put your hand up. A runner will come out, give you a piece of paper and pencil, and then they'll bring them up to me from time to time. I've already received several questions via our website by people who have been engaged and have sent ahead questions, so we got lots to talk about tonight. With all the questions that are submitted, I reserve the right to rephrase the question in order to make it answerable by all 4 candidates. After about an hour of the question period and so on, for which each candidate will have 1 minute to do a response, bell goes off at 45 seconds and then again at 1 minute. Once we're done with that, then we'll do closing statements. They will be in the reverse order of the opening statements, and they too will be maximum 4 minutes in length. Now, as we all know, there are 50 ways to leave your lover, but only 4 ways to get out of here in case of a fire. So I'm obligated to tell you that if it's fire, it's that door, that one down there, this one over here, and I don't know where the 4th one is, maybe through the window. So hopefully there won't be any fire, but I'm required to let you know that the fire exits. Enough of that. Let us hear from our candidates for Kitchener-Conestoga in this year's provincial election. First opening statement from Mike Harris. Mike.
I'm told there's a bit of a delay with the mic, so can you guys hear me all right through this? No? Have you turned it on? How about now? Ooh, there we go. To make sure I have my radio voice on for everybody tonight. So listen, hi everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Mike Harris, the Progressive Conservative candidate, currently running for re-election here in Kitchener-Conestoga. My last 4 years, really focus has been on advancing the region's top priority. These include better access to healthcare, of course long-term care investment, and something that's very important to everybody in this room, which is rural broadband expansion. In the legislature, I'm always outspoken about making my life more affordable for families and securing funding for community infrastructure, just like the building we're sitting in today, and was happy to make a little over a $4 million announcement a couple of weeks ago that we're going to be, from a provincial government standpoint, doing a pretty serious modernization of this historic building here in downtown New Hamburg. So really excited to see that come to fruition. As many of you know, as a father of 5, I've also championed many child safety initiatives, including my private member's bill, the Safer School Buses Act, which will finally see Ontario adopt the North American standard for a safer amber-red warning light system for school buses. My work on reducing red tape also led to the launch of Ontario's digital dealer registration program, streamlining the vehicle purchasing process across Ontario, allowing customers to register their cars in dealership the day of purchase. And this election, I'm proud to fully support the PC Party's plan to grow Ontario's economy while expanding affordability for the residents of Waterloo Region. This involves making investments in infrastructure, including moving forward on Highway 7 and 401 expansions, building 30,000 new long-term care spaces across Ontario, and adding hospital capacity at St. Mary's, Grand River, and Cambridge Memorial Hospitals. It also means making life more affordable by scrapping license plate stickers, lowering the price of gasoline, reducing post-secondary tuition fees by 10%, and freezing them for the past 3 years, and providing additional tax relief for workers. Ontarians are looking for and deserve the kind of leadership that will focus on key issues that matter to the families and businesses of Waterloo Region. And that's why we have introduced a 5-point plan that focuses on rebuilding Ontario's economy, working for workers, building highways and key infrastructure, keeping costs down, and of course, a plan to stay open. This means continued investment in auto initiatives, life sciences, and critical technologies to create good, well-paying jobs, high-tech jobs of the future. It means encouraging apprenticeships and opening up skilled trades and allowing colleges to grant 3-year degrees. In addition to building new roads and highways, we are improving GO train service by adding new trips on the Kitchener GO line. In rural communities like right here in Wilmot Township, we are expanding access to natural gas and investing in affordable high-speed internet and improving access to affordable childcare. It also means hiring more nurses, PSWs, and helping seniors stay in their own homes longer with the Seniors Home Safety Tax Credit. The platform I have outlined builds upon a tremendous amount of work that we have already begun or completed in our first term in office. And I hope to get into more detail on what's been done and how we'll build it in today. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending tonight, and we'll turn it back to you, Randy. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Jim, would you offer your opening comments to us?
Thank you very much, Randall, and thank you, everybody, for having me here today. My name is Jim Karahalios. I am the leader of the New Blue Party of Ontario. That is a brand new party registered with Elections Ontario, and this June 2nd election and this election campaign is our first election campaign. My wife, who I'm honored that she allows me to call her husband, I call her wife and she calls me husband, and it's hard to match her presence in any room. She is the MPP for the riding of Cambridge, Belinda Karahalios. Together, we for years did all we could to influence the political process with our convictions and to stand up on principle and represent people from the inside, because that is what the establishment class tells us to do. Work it from the inside of one of the existing establishment parties. That's the way I grew up, because my parents chose Ontario as the place for their future, because Ontario had a set of values and principles that we all shared. The idea that you can have a political opinion and get involved in the political process without fear of retribution. The idea that those elected to govern are done so in elections that are free and fair, and the idea that parents are first educators of their children, and you will never be shamed for believing in an almighty God. But in our experience on the inside of political party politics in Ontario, things are not aligned with the values and principles that most Ontarians believe. My wife voted against Doug Ford's lockdown bill, and she was swiftly kicked out of the PC caucus, and 19 other members of the PC Riding Association in Cambridge that supported her, we were kicked right out of our positions, unlawfully, undemocratically, without due process. This concluded a few years of retribution leveled against my family and I and the thousands of people who did not want to see the PC party become the wing of the Justin Trudeau Federal Liberal Party of Canada. So we started the New Blue Party of Ontario because the establishment parties do not have any room for grassroots activism. And today I'm going to get into our platform and why I'm running and why we are running 124 candidates across Ontario, and I'll give you a couple of the highlights. We must roll back the lockdown and mandate measures that have been put forward by this PC government. We must fix our education system, starting with offering tax credits for those who choose alternative schooling for their children, and stopping critical race theory in our schools. We must grow our economy, starting by reducing electricity rates and taking down those wind turbines that have turned our electrical grid into a banana republic. We must also offer tax relief by reducing the HST and getting rid of Doug Ford's industrial carbon tax. And most importantly, we must clean up our political process in Ontario, starting with scrapping the $100 million in taxpayer subsidies that the establishment parties take to run their political operations, and promoting a free press, starting with getting rid of the Toronto Star's online gambling license. I look forward to the next little while here to get into further detail about our party platform, the New Blueprint, and the New Blue Party of Ontario. And I can assure you that as we've shown over the last few years, at the New Blue Party of Ontario, we stick to our commitments and our convictions. So thank you for having me. Thank you for providing me the opportunity.
Thank you, Jim. Karen, could you offer your opening comments to the crew today?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Randy, and thank you for the organizers for making space for us this evening. I do want to begin in a good way by acknowledging that the land we are on is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. I am Karen Meisner, running with the Ontario NDP. I'm a parent, a mother, I am a small business owner, a student, I'm a school board trustee, but most importantly, I'm a member of this community. I've grown up in Waterloo Region and moved into this riding about 15 years ago to raise my family of 3 children. At the start of the pandemic, I was forced to close my small business because of safety measures that were in place, rightfully so. But that was a very difficult time for me, and I know the pandemic has been a very difficult time for all of you out there as well. It impacted my family's economic stability, it impacted our well-being, and I know that this has been a very difficult time, and I just want to start by acknowledging that and the resiliency of those of us in the room. When I was really young, my parents said that I was very shy, very shy. And as I've grown into an adult and started to raise my own children, I realized I wasn't shy, but I was a listener. I've always been a listener, and I feel that the role of an NPP is to listen to the people in their community and advocate for them at Queen's Park, advocate for them within their party, advocate for them to make change for the better. The last 3 years, 2 years, 3 years under Doug Ford, the last 16 years under the Liberals have been very challenging for people. We've seen a lot of status quo thinking, and I know that when I'm knocking on doors, people are ready for change. The number one concern that I hear at the doors is affordability, seniors' care and health care, as well as education. I'm very excited to be here today. Slightly nervous, but very excited to see all of you out there because I know you want the same things that I do. You want an affordable life where you can thrive with your families, an affordable life where you are stable, where you can connect with community in a meaningful way, and that's why I'm here too, because I want to be that person for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And Melanie, will you favor us with your opening statement, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So already shared, but my name is Melanie Van Alphen, and I use she, her pronouns. I am honored to be speaking here tonight as your Ontario Liberal candidate in the incredible riding of Kitchener-Conestoga. Thank you, Randy, and the entire team here at the New Hamburg Board of Trade for making this night possible. We should feel really extremely privileged to be meeting in person today, healthy and taken care of on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. As a white settler on this land, I fully recognize my privilege and the importance of truth, reconciliation, and healing. All of us on the panel tonight come here with many different backgrounds and perspectives and bring a unique voice to our community. I'd like to take some time to share my story with you at this time of the night. I was born and raised in Kitchener, but I have now lived in the beautiful township of Woolwich with my family for the past 14 years. I'm married with 3 incredible children, ages 6, 13, and 14. I have a psychology degree from Wilfrid Laurier University, and I had a 15-year career at Scotiabank before my family and I decided I would stay home with our kids. I love giving back to the community. I have been volunteering over the past year at Tiny Home Takeout and sit on the board of directors for KW Counseling. In 2014, I was very involved in my kids' school as a volunteer with Strong Start and on the school council. It was then that I decided to run for school board trustee. We built a team, we knocked on doors, we worked very hard, and in December of 2014, I was sworn in as a trustee for the Waterloo Catholic District School Board. In that role, I've worked on many committees. I've served as the past vice chair for 2 years, followed by the chair of the board. As a trustee, I have advocated and spoken up on many issues, including initiating the first school council commissioning to strengthen relationship with parents in our school community, advocated for safe school travel, menstrual equity, raising the pride flag at all our schools, and many systemic inequities. As a mom and a school board trustee, I've seen firsthand the chaos the Ford government has caused. There has been little communication, transparency, consultation, with many last-minute decisions. I decided it was time to get off the sidelines and join a team that would work together with the people in Ontario and in Kitchener-Conestoga to address the issues that we're hearing. My priorities and passions include improving education, where we have committed to lowering class sizes, providing a real option for grade 13, hiring more mental health and special education supports. I'm also committed to strengthening healthcare, and the Ontario Liberals will repeal Bill 124, recruit more health professionals, support seniors so they can age with dignity. Another priority of mine is protecting the environment. We must protect our wetlands, green spaces, farmlands, and groundwater. We will, as a party, eliminate MZOs, stop Highway 413, provide incentives for electric vehicles, and much more. I'm sure we've all heard the phrases, "We are in unprecedented times, and this is a turning point for our province." But if you'll indulge me for just a minute, I'd like to tell you why I continue to use them. People are tired. They are tired of politicians getting voted in on electoral systems that doesn't represent their needs. They are tired of frontline workers being disrespected and institutions being left to fend for themselves. It is our job to listen and learn from the people we represent so that we can bring these concerns and issues to the forefront of our work. Ontario Liberals took time to listen and gather the collective knowledge for our province. I am proud to be the Ontario Liberal candidate under the leadership of Stephen Del Duca, and I am committed to being present in the riding and engaged with local residents on key issues so we can work together. I will listen and lead with compassion and understanding. Thank you, and I look forward to the conversation tonight.
Thanks, Melanie. So now we'll get into the question period, and the first one has got to be about COVID. COVID has brought to light issues within the healthcare system. Shortage of doctors, shortage of hospital beds, and issues within long-term care. What will your party do to address these concerns? Melanie, can you start the panel's discussion on COVID?
First, I would like to recognize that it's been a very challenging 2 years for many people in many different ways. And my heart goes out to anyone who's lost a loved one or who's been struggling during this time. The healthcare system is important to all of us. There's been a lot of mismanaging and lack of communication there as well. I can talk about the long-term care at the doors. We've been at the doors since October, connecting with voters in the riding. And we've heard loud and clear that there needs to be change in long-term care so that seniors can age with dignity. We recently released our platform on rejuvenizing elder care, and we will do many things in that respect. That goes fast. We will end for-profit care and focus on envisioning a whole new plan for senior care to make sure all seniors are taken care of in an equitable manner. And healthcare, we will hire thousands more nurses and doctors. We'll clear surgery, increase hospital beds. Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. It's a tough thrill to talk about COVID in 1 minute, but Jim, that's your assignment.
In my visits to other cities and in building the New Blue Party, I've had the unfortunate experience of meeting people who have had the worst experiences with COVID. I was in Peterborough a couple weeks ago, and a young mom thanked me, or asked me to thank Belinda, of course, for raising the issue of the fact that authorities, the police, came to her to threaten to report her to Children's Aid for not putting a mask on her child in a park. A young mother in East York called me in tears a few months ago because Belinda and I had been advocating in interviews for the expansion of early treatment of COVID. We found a hospital in Hamilton where a doctor had brought in monoclonal antibody treatment, but very few people in Ontario knew that it was here. Her mother slipped into a coma. This lady that called me, it was too late for her to access that early treatment. I do not know why early treatment like monoclonal antibodies and other early treatments for COVID were not readily available in the last 2 years by this government. But it is a disgrace, and that is the starting point of dealing with COVID going forward. Thank you, Rand.
Thank you very much, Jim. Mike, could you continue the panel's discussion on COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to echo Melanie's sentiment and just say that it has been very tough on a lot of people across this province. And I think when we look at maybe some ways that we could learn from what's happened during the pandemic, I want to highlight a few things. Obviously, we've seen that there needs to be a major reinvestment in healthcare in many different sectors all across the province. And something I've been fighting for here locally almost for 4 years now is really seeing a rejuvenation in our hospitals. And was really excited to a few weeks ago make an announcement regarding new hospital beds that are coming here to the region. Also funding for surgeries that have been backlogged through the pandemic. So it's really great to see new beds coming to the region. I will say that we have an ambitious plan to build 30,000 new long-term care beds.
Michael, sorry, I got to cut you off.
That was really quick.
Yeah.
Did the timer actually get reset on that one?
As a matter of fact, she did.
We can think about 2 minutes for the subsequent questions.
We'll think about that, but we'll give Karen 1 minute to solve COVID. Karen, please.
You can give me 2 minutes if you want. The pandemic has been really tough. The last couple of years have been very challenging for people. I have a grandparent that lived in long-term care since 2019. And the isolation, the loneliness, the separation from family and community has been very challenging. And that is one of the more positive stories out of the long-term care disaster. The one thing that ties it all together is the impact on all of us and our mental health. The NDP released several weeks ago their mental health care is healthcare platform, which means that anyone can access mental health resources with their OHIP card rather than a credit card. It will start with the most vulnerable people, our young people in our community, and will go sustainably roll out for other folks as well. But it's really important that we get back on track with our mental health on the back of COVID.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, we have 4 really great people with a lot of great opinions here that can't be expressed in a minute. So from here on in, it's 2 minutes to answer every question. And so we got COVID touched on. Let's talk about the other major issue facing all of us as humans on this planet. The Canadian federal government and Waterloo region have declared a climate emergency. Would all of the candidates please state the actions, short-term and long-term, to which your party's platform is committed to reaching our 2030 target of 50% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. To start our discussions off on that, Jim, I'll ask you to comment on that.
What's imperative in politics is we have to hold politicians accountable for promising something to get votes and then never achieving those promises. I had the fortune of being able to do an undergraduate degree and a master's degree in civil engineering before I went to law school, and I specialize in environmental engineering. I made that choice largely because I found the structural engineering course pretty difficult. But I was very fortunate to do environmental engineering because I learned what real environmental solutions are. Clean water, clean air, clean soil. Making these commitments to targets that are set internationally that we know we are not going to achieve are destructive to the democratic process. We are not going to achieve those commitments that are made by the federal government, and Doug Ford has decided that he is just going to back up Justin on all of the federal government's commitments. The carbon tax is not doing anything to improve our environment. It is taking money out of hardworking individuals and putting it into government coffers. And the worst part about the carbon tax, Doug Ford's industrial carbon tax and Justin Trudeau's consumer carbon tax, is it washes over all the other environmental problems we have, because the federal and provincial politicians just turn and say, well, we got our carbon tax, problem solved on clean air, clean soil. And that is not the case. We are not going to achieve those emission targets, whether we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on electric vehicle subsidies or billions of dollars on electric vehicle subsidies, and we cannot continue to harm our economy by creating industries to achieve international targets that are not self-sustaining for the long term. So thank you, Randall.
Thanks, Jim. Karen, can you continue the panel's discussion on climate change?
Thank you so much. This is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. What I know is that we have the solutions already in front of us. I also know the Green New Democratic Deal, which is the Ontario NDP's platform for climate change, has a number of things in it that will support addressing the climate emergency that we face today. A really important and significant one is lowering our reliance on automobiles. There is a significant program in the platform about transitioning to electric vehicles, but also supporting active transportation and public transportation. I know out here in the townships, I live in the townships, that public transportation is not very accessible, it's not regular, it's not reliable, and so probably every single one of you rely on a vehicle every day to get where you need to go. We can fix that by supporting municipalities in operating costs for their public transportation, so we can improve the services so that you all out here in Wilmot have a reliable public transportation system. And that's just one of the solutions within the Green New Democratic Deal that can help to address the climate emergency we face today. Because if we don't address it today, we will not have a healthy, sustainable planet to live on. And that will be detrimental to our existence. So again, that is just one point in the platform for the Green New Democratic Deal. Many other things to address in there, but I will leave it at that. I'm pretty sure my time is almost over. It's very hard to address in even 2 minutes.
No, Karen, it's going to be 2, it's not going to be 7, okay? However, Melanie will continue on our discussion on climate change.
Sure, thank you, Randy. So first, I'd like to say that we're very serious about tackling the climate crisis. Actually, we have a very comprehensive plan. Our platform was actually released today, so hopefully people will have a chance to take a look at that over the next couple days. But the question, I believe, was specifically around greenhouse gas emissions. So I will just speak quickly to that and then maybe share a little bit more of our plan. So in our platform, we will cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50% below 2005 levels by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions by 2050. So that is outlined in our platform with all the details along to go with that. Another aspect that I thought would be important to talk about, especially here in New Hamburg, is the fact of the gravel mining. I have had a great opportunity to speak with many people in Wilmot and in Woolwich actually who are facing issues regarding the gravel mining. And that is something we have in our platform as well. We will strengthen oversight and environmental protections over gravel and aggregate mining before approving new mines. So it is something that our party is looking at and working towards the future on that area too. As I said in my opening, we will eliminate the MZO process too and bring stricter rules in regarding that as well. And I know Karen alluded to electric vehicles. We have incentives in our platform for electric vehicles as well as e-bikes as well. And well, we're really focused on protecting our green spaces, our farmlands, our groundwater, and our biodiversity. I live in Woolwich and we walk the trails every day. It's beautiful, and I'm passionate about protecting what we have here.
Thank you, Melanie. Last word on this topic goes to you, Mike, on climate change.
Well, thanks very much, Randy. And there's a couple things that I want to kind of get out off the top. So under this progressive conservative government, we're making great strides to meet the thresholds that have been put forward by the federal government and the region. And excited to say that if things are trending in the direction that they're going, we will be able to meet those targets. Just to touch quickly, Jim's talked a little bit about the carbon tax, and I want to make it very clear that Doug Ford and the Progressive Conservative government do not believe that a carbon tax is something that we should be doing, whether it be in Ontario or anywhere in Canada. So I want to make that very clear. But what we do want is to partner with businesses and organizations. And I'll give you a couple of examples of some things that we've done across Ontario to be able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So the first thing that you've heard a lot of probably over the last little while is obviously there's been a lot of talk about green vehicles, electric vehicles. So the Ontario government has partnered with organizations like General Motors, also with Ford and Stellantis and Honda. Stellantis is essentially the company that owns Chrysler now. And we're going to be, for the first time ever, making electric vehicle batteries here in the province of Ontario. Now, you may ask, what does that mean? Well, we're also going to be putting forward, and in fact, we already have put forward, what is our new critical mineral strategy. So rather than seeing these minerals that go into these batteries mined in places like China or Russia, where quite frankly, I think we all know that there's no rules when it comes to what they do there, we are actually going to be able to see those from coming out of the ground to being put in a vehicle in a much more environmentally friendly way. Hopefully we'll get a chance maybe to touch a little bit more on public transit and the investments we've made into the GO train. Obviously, two-way all-day GO is very important out here. So I'm hoping maybe Randy will get a chance a little bit later to talk about some of that.
Thank you, Michael. The next question that I have came not from two sources. One, the internet was submitted to the new Hamburg Board of Trade website prior to this evening, but also supplemented by a question from the floor here, written out. And so I'll just, before I give you the question and give the candidates the opportunity to talk about this issue, would again remind you all that if you have any questions that you would like submitted to me to possibly bring to the candidates' attention and comment, just raise your hand. We'll get a runner out with a pencil and a piece of paper, and there we go. And then hopefully I can work that in. So this next question deals with affordable housing. The current escalation of housing prices has brought to light the urgent need for more housing at different price points. Affordable housing is a term that's tossed around a lot. This term means different things to different people. What is your party's strategy to facilitate housing for all income levels, and who is your target community when developing your policies regarding affordable housing? Mike, could you start us off on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually really excited to touch on this because this is something that we've really heard at the doors when we've been out across the riding over the last, a few months, quite frankly. And I'm glad that it's finally a little bit nicer weather over the last little while because it was pretty miserable for a bit. But when we look at housing affordability, there really has to be a plan for everybody. And I think that's really the important thing to touch on here. When we look at where people want to live, how they want to live, whether they want to be in a rural township like beautiful Wilmot where we are today, or whether they want to live in the city maybe more close to, could be where they work, or maybe their friends or family. So there needs to be options for people. I think that's very important. And the way to do that is to increase more supply on the market. We've been working with the federal government, we've been working with municipalities, obviously across the province, but of course here in Waterloo Region, whether that be the region or the various city or township municipalities, to try and eliminate red tape, get more homes on the market, whether that's single family homes, whether that is townhomes, whether it's purpose-built rentals, or what I like to call attainable housing, or things that people can actually afford. But it's really, really, really crucial that we eliminate the red tape, that we make sure that municipalities are being held accountable for slowing down the process. And I can tell you that that's what a PC government has been doing and will continue to do, and make sure that we boost supply here in the province so that people can find an affordable home to live in. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Mike. Melanie, can you present the Liberal platform on affordable housing?
Sure, it's a great question. And again, I'm just going to share a little story since we do have an extra minute with our answers. So at the doors, I was talking to a gentleman, and it was a really hard conversation to have with him, and he was renting a house. And he came out to talk to me. He has 2 young kids. His youngest was 6 months old, and the owner of the house was going to be selling. So he was stuck in a bind, and he was worried that he wasn't going to be able to find a house. He had tears, and it was very emotional. He explained to me that the new owner would either rent it and raise the rent by double, or sell it and have to get a mortgage. So that was a very important conversation to have, and something that is very important for us to tackle. It is in our platform, and something that we are taking very seriously. We have to look at everybody, including the homelessness in the community, to try and find affordable housing, first-time home buyers, families, lower income families. But I can share a few points from the platform. I'm not going to be able to go through all of it, but we have a plan to get 1.5 million homes built to increase the supply. That is one of the key areas. 130 affordable homes, specifically for social and community homes, supportive housing, new homes for Indigenous people, and we will establish the Ontario Home Building Corporation to finance and build affordable homes. We will reform the blind bidding process, and transparency is very important in our plan too, to make sure that there is transparency on the history of house sales. Bringing back rent control is also important. So our plan is really involving and encompassing all homeowners to make sure that it is affordable. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Karen, could you pick up the conversation of the panel on affordable housing?
Thank you, Randy. Happy to. As you said, affordable housing means something different to everyone. But what I know is that we all deserve a home that fits our needs. Every single one of us. And right now, that is not the case for many people in our community. There's many people that are living rough, experiencing homelessness, unable to move to a home that fits and meets their needs of their family. And the NDP have a plan. It's called the Homes You Can Afford plan, which has been out for quite some time now. What we know by speaking to members of the community is that there is a missing middle. We don't need big highways to big homes that no one can really afford. What we need is spaces that fit and meet the needs of those of us in our community. That's both on the rental side of things by having rent control, eliminating rent evictions. It also means ensuring that we are addressing exclusionary zoning and speculation tax. There are homes available right now. They sit empty because investors are using them to make money off of, when right now we have people living on the street. It is not okay that we have folks that are living rough and unable to find a home that fits their needs. So there are a number of things in the NDP platform, as I said. Did I get shut off? No. Speculation tax, ending exclusionary zoning, and ensuring that there are spaces for everyone by building sustainable, supportive housing for everyone.
Thanks, Karen. Jim, do you want to conclude the panel's discussion on affordable housing?
I think affordable housing really doesn't mean different things to different people. It means being able to have a good job, bring home, take home pay that can pay for your rent or your mortgage, and provide for your family, and raise your family in a home where hopefully their future is better than what you experienced growing up. And whether it's to rent or to buy, people make those choices that are up to them. And there's a lot of different factors that impact whether someone can afford their own home or to rent. And what we've seen in the last 20 years of Liberal and PC governments, an extension of the same policy, is these different factors are creating problems for people in Ontario to be able to buy their own homes, and these problems are created by government. We talked about earlier about the carbon tax that Mike says they're not for, but they put in an industrial carbon tax. And we also have electricity rates that went from 5 and 6 cents a kilowatt hour to over 15 cents a kilowatt hour. All of these additional costs and the lack of tax relief in the last 20 years in Ontario means that people have to work harder and harder to bring home less and less money. And they do not have as much disposable income to pay the rent or buy a home. And right now, we don't have any political party in Ontario fighting for people to be able to work and bring home a good salary where the government is taking less, either with taxes or by reversing this banana republic of an electricity grid that we have that is ripping off people for electricity we don't need. In addition, we need more supply, like Mike said, but the PCs haven't lived up to that. Sure, they cut corners for industrial facilities like in Blair Village in Cambridge, if the lobbyist knows someone connected to the government, but by and large, the planning process has not allowed for more supply to be put on the market. And then the third factor is Ontario's economic growth has depended on increased immigration for many years. And it's been ramped up by the Justin Trudeau government without a plan in place to build homes to accommodate those people. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. One issue that's kind of near and dear to the heart of people here in Wilmot Township and in our region generally of Waterloo, that's been touched on by some of the candidates already in their answers, is the use of the infamous MZO order. Quite frankly, what is your opinion of the private sector using MZOs to benefit things like the Stratford Glass Factory, a new subdivision in Wilmot, and a new warehouse in Cambridge, at potentially the expense of local democracy or voice? To touch on the MZO and to start us off, Karen, would you please?
Thank you so much. It's a really great question. I've been listening to the community for some time about the MZO, particularly locally. And what I know is that the NDP is committed to working with and collaborating with local municipalities, not bypassing their planning processes. The Ford government recently announced their EMZO or enhanced MZO, which completely bypasses the local decision making, and unfortunately means that community members such as yourself don't have a say in the planning projects and processes in their community. And it is not okay. It is not okay. The NDP believe in working together with municipalities. Right now, the region of Waterloo has a very strong countryside line, and I think we would all agree we need to hold the line, protect the farmland in our communities, which comes first or second across Canada every year as the most profitable farmland in the country, and not something that we need to be paving over, not something that we need to be building more highways on, not something that we need to be changing that planning process so that the local community doesn't have a say. It's really important. It's a really important question. So thank you, Randy, for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Mike, would you like to continue the panel's discussion on MZOs?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a timely topic because it's something that obviously has been coming up quite a bit in the news over the last little while. But I think one thing we need to realize is that you can't just cherry pick the things that you want out of it. So when we talk about consultation, an MZO, and we've been very clear from a government perspective about this, an MZO cannot go forward without council approval and a resolution from council, which means that there must be due course and due consideration given to the community through that process. And the projects that were mentioned before haven't gone forward because council decided that they didn't want to do that. But I can say that we've been able to build more long-term care homes. We've been able to build more affordable apartment buildings, all using the MZO tool. So people can look at it as, a dirty word if you want to. But I think when we look at the way that it's actually worked out, projects that have not been approved by local councils have not gone forward. And I think that is something that is very key to this. There must be local buy-in from the project for it to move forward. So I'm excited to see what the future holds in regards to building more long-term care homes, building more affordable apartments, building more community spaces, potentially or not using an MZO tool, but it is there for municipalities should they want it. So again, thank you very much, Randy, for the question, and look forward to hearing what others have to say about it. Thank you.
And we'll look forward to see what Jim has to say about it next. Jim.
Belinda Carahalios. Oh, what's going on? Belinda Carahalios. Is this working? Straight up. There you go. Hello? There you go. No, I keep shutting off. This is cutting into my time.
No. Here.
Hello? No, I keep shutting off, I think. Okay, sorry. In the village of Blair in the riding of Cambridge, the Ford government cut the corners on the Planning Act, and the developer had a secret meeting with the Cambridge City Council, and they came out and they said, we're building a facility here that was never consulted with the community and that does not abide by the planning process in place. Belinda led the charge, responding to grassroots pushback from residents in Blair, and together we were able, on the shoulders of those residents, stop that facility from going forward when council went back and voted again against that facility going forward. If you're going to have a set of rules for development, whether residential or industrial, they should be the same for everyone. But the rules in place at Queen's Park that the Liberals and the PCs have put in place with the MZO is that the development process is a nightmare unless you've got a friend that knows how to lobby the government. Then it's a piece of cake. That is the antithesis of grassroots democracy and the municipal and the provincial process. And with all due respect to the candidates on the stage that are fighting, I know they're going to try really hard to represent their constituents and their convictions if they're successful. But when they get in there and they see the underbelly of what's happened to democracy at Queen's Park, and the lobbyists that tell the MPPs how to vote, and the MZOs that get pushed forward without consultation, they're going to be out in for a rude awakening. And this has been created by Liberal and PC governments for 20 years. We have the experience of how to push back and to listen to residents. We've shown it in Cambridge, and that's what I'm going to do for Kitchener-Conestoga.
And Melanie, would you finish the panel's discussion on MZO orders?
Sure, thanks, Randy. So a lot of it's been said. Bringing it back to Kitchener-Conestoga here in Wilmot with the MZO that was brought forward just around Christmas time, if I believe so. It was quite the process for everyone living here, and there was a lot of pushback. And I did share a statement at that time saying that the Ontario Liberals would eliminate the MZO process as it currently is and bring in stricter rules to allow for more consultation, more working with municipal, regional partners, Indigenous people as well, to make sure that those choices and those decisions going forward are correct. Going back also to transparency and working together. And if elected, I will work very hard to bring forward the concerns that are brought forward by the constituents and stand up for what the people in Kitchener-Conestoga need and believe in, because that's what we are to do when we are elected. So I think that's all I'll add to that comment.
Thanks, Melanie. Our next question has to do with transportation. In 2009, the provincial government identified the area between Baden and New Hamburg as being a preferred location for an overnight facility and future GO Transit stop. GO trains are now running from Kitchener to London as part of a 2-year trial introduced by the current government, and St. Mary's, with a population of 7,400 people, has a stop. Baden and New Hamburg have a combined existing population of approximately 14,000, which is planned to grow to approximately 25,000 in the next 30 years. What will you do if elected as our MPP to secure a stop for Wilmot and surrounding area residents to access the service as part of the pilot and to promote intermunicipal rail service over the long term? Melanie, will you tackle that question first for us?
Sure thing. Happy to take that on first. I remember hearing that announcement, and the Ontario Liberal Party is committed to investing into transit, including two-way all-day go between Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo region. So your question is, what will I do if I'm elected, and how will we bring that forward for Wilmot, correct? So I'm not going to go into the platform then on this policy and just share with everyone that what I've been saying this whole time is that I will be connecting with people in the community to hear exactly what it is people want to see happen, how that is to be looked at, and how that can be developed going forward. I know people struggle in Wilmot and in Woolwich. Where I live in Woolwich, we have no transit. I can't hop on a bus. I can't take in an ion or anything to get anywhere. And I've taken that to my municipal partners by living in Woolwich, because I believe in biking or taking the bus. My kids can't take the bus anywhere. It is a difficult position to be in. So I can understand the frustrations, and I think that needs to expand everywhere so that transit can be available for everyone, because it impacts the climate, it impacts our health, it impacts our mental health. We will fight for that. I will fight for that when elected, to bring that conversation forward so we can make it more accessible here in Wilmot.
Thank you, Melanie. Jim, do you continue the conversation about GO Transit and Wilmot?
I think one question that has to be asked before we get into commitments of transportation between Kitchener, Conestoga, Wilmot, and Toronto is the consistent focus of all new economic development and jobs primarily being located in Toronto. So more and more families are forced to work far away from where they live. I like this community of Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge. I would rather go to Toronto as few times as possible. And unfortunately, due to successive provincial governments, the focus is always Toronto and government spending to create jobs in Toronto. And I think we have to change the thinking in terms of what can we do from a government policy perspective to create jobs for people where they live. Because Ontario has beautiful places to live in every corner from east to west to north, and they're not all Toronto. We also have to make sure that if we're spending government money, taxpayer money, on infrastructure for public use, that people will use it. Unfortunately, Liberal and PC governments, they like to announce infrastructure projects that cost hundreds of millions of dollars because they are trying to buy votes without actually assessing if such a GO train option will be used by people to justify its use. And so those are all important factors to take into consideration when we're promising a two-way GO train from Wilmot to Toronto. Why are there not jobs locally being created? Why are people being forced to go into Toronto to work, spending an hour or two each way, which means less time with their families, and not being able to find good quality jobs where they live?
Thanks, Jim. Next, Mike, could you favor us with your comments on the question of GO Transit?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Randy. And I want to go back to the 2018 election. And one of the things that was just a reoccurring theme constantly at the doors, or whether we were doing these types of events, was better GO Transit infrastructure. And I have to say that there were a lot of promises made by previous governments. And hey, listen, I'll even throw my dad's government under the bus for a second here, back in the early 2000s, saying that they were going to get these things done. But quite frankly, they just didn't deliver. In the 4 years that we have had an opportunity to have a rejuvenated PC government here in Ontario, we actually have seen progress being made, whether that be travel time down, whether that be increased cars, increased trips. We've seen almost a 70% increase in the actual back and forth between Toronto and Waterloo region. But one of the interesting things that I want to touch on that I've learned through this whole process, and there's almost as many people that commute on a daily basis into Waterloo region from Toronto and the GTA that commute out. We've got a very vibrant high-tech job sector here. We've got a very vibrant manufacturing sector here, and these are all things that we want to be able to promote. So I'm really excited to see two-way all-day GO becoming a reality here in Waterloo region. When we talk about what a stop might look like in Wilmot Township, I think it's obviously a little bit premature to decide whether that needs to happen or not. But I think when you look at the expansion to London, moving things further down the tracks, what makes sense is a stop on the east side of Waterloo Region and a stop on the west side of Waterloo Region to complement the transit hub that is being built in downtown Kitchener. So if the community is looking for something like that and the ridership is there, then absolutely. I think there's a place for a stop here in New Hamburg or Baden, and certainly something that the next government, which I believe will be a PC government, will be evaluating as we move forward. It's a great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And finally, Karen, can you wrap up the discussion on Go Transit?
Thank you so much. You're very good at those transitions, Randy. Appreciate that. I think what I'm hearing is that folks in this community want to be able to move freely between, Waterloo Region, Toronto, to access jobs, to access other services in the broader community in the province. And right now, I know I live in a part of the region that does have very mediocre public transportation. And what that means is my family relies on a car. And as I said earlier, if we are committed to addressing the climate emergency, we need to shift that thinking, and we need to offer more options to people so that they can get around using alternatives that are more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. And what I'm hearing about the Go Transit and the stop in St. Mary's, as well as the maybe the need here in the New Hamburg Baden area for another stop is I'm hearing that that's something that the community is advocating for. So it will take a little bit more investigation as to why this was bypassed, to be totally honest with you, and why St. Mary's was awarded as part of this pilot project. There's clearly a need, there's clearly a desire, so it's certainly something that we need to improve upon, improve services, improve the reliability of that public transportation, whether that is, our regional Grand River Transit or whether that is through Go services as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Yesterday, I filled my gas tank with $2 a liter gas after leaving the grocery store where I paid over $5 for a pound of ground beef. Inflation seems to be everywhere, in every aspect, whether it's housing, which we've already touched on, or just the basic consumer items that we pay every single day. While we recognize that many of the inflation concerns are not in the control of the provincial government, how will your government deliver current needs while being fiscally responsible? And for that, Jim, could you start us off?
Those are great questions, and it stems from having provincial government and provincial politicians who are not driven by ideology of international treaties and meeting obligations based on ideology that later on impact negatively their own voters. I was talking earlier about electricity rates that have skyrocketed based on the ideology that if we bring wind turbines in, and the Ford PCs are building the largest wind farm in Ontario's history in eastern Ontario, if we bring them in, we're going to solve our international commitments, and all we saw was a tripling of electricity rates, which leads to higher costs of goods. And then we've seen a carbon tax come forward that has resulted in increasing prices at the pumps and in other measures, either directly to consumers or through industry that passes down those costs to the individual. All driven by ideology. And you mentioned also federal government policy that leads to inflation. Well, historically, in our province, the leader of the PC party, whether it was Mike's dad or anyone else, and I'm sorry to see that you're not happy of your dad's record. I appreciate my dad and everything he did in a fish and chip shop. It wasn't like being the premier, but I'll give you that much. But the leader of the PC party always holds the Liberal government federally to account. And so if the Liberals federally are spending a bunch of money that's going to impact taxpayers with higher inflation or indirect taxation, we always relied on the leader of Ontario in the PC party and the Premier to hold that federal Liberal government to account. But now that we've got 3 parties in the Ontario legislature, when Justin Trudeau says jump, they say how high. And we have no opposition in Ontario to hold that federal Liberal government to account on inflation or any other policy.
Thanks, Jim. Karen, can you pick up the panel's discussion on inflation?
Thank you so much. How's that? Good. Thank you so much. I can tell you that when I'm knocking on doors, which I've been doing for several months now, that is the #1 question that that comes up with folks is affordability, general affordability. So gas prices, grocery prices, rent, housing, and so on. I can't tell you how many people in tears at the door when they're describing their personal circumstances, when they're talking about making decisions about filling the fridge with groceries or being able to pay their rent. And quite frankly, wages have not kept up with the inflation that we are seeing today. The NDP are committed to raising minimum wages so that people can live in dignity, that folks can afford to feed their children and pay their rent. This is just one branch of how we tackle part of this affordability crisis that we're facing. But wages haven't kept up. At the same time, we're committed to freezing taxes on lower and middle income folks. The reality is that, billionaires have not been paying their fair share, that the most profitable corporations, which made off like bandits during the pandemic, have not been paying their fair share. And it's all of us in this room that are then left to pick up the slack and support the social services. So we're committed to freeze on middle income tax for middle and lower income folks, pardon me, as well as raising the minimum wage so that people can live in dignity.
Thanks, Karen. Melanie, can you continue our panel's discussion on inflation, please?
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, so talking about affordability, that's definitely been an issue that has been brought up many times at the doors, on the phones, and in conversations with many groups. So I would like to share that we have shared our affordability plan earlier today, but we will eliminate HST on prepared food for anything under $20. Currently it's under $4, so that will add a little bit of affordability. Lower the gas tax. We also will increase the minimum wage to $16, but we feel that there needs to be more to it. So we would bring in a regional living wage so that will be different by region. We will also create a package for portable benefits to help folks with their living affordabilities, and that will go for everyone, self-employed, gig contracts, and creative workers, and that would be portable from worker to worker, from employment to employment. Those are some of the ideas to help with affordability for people living in Kitchener-Conestoga and across Ontario.
Thanks, Melanie. And then finally, Mike, can you conclude our discussion on inflation?
Yeah, absolutely. And before that, I want to say I'm very proud of my father's record. He was a fantastic premier here in the province of Ontario, and I might add, a small business owner and a teacher and a school board trustee before finally getting involved in politics in the Great Riding of Nipissing in 1981, where he worked his way up through the party, eventually became leader and a 2-term majority government premier in the province of Ontario. So I want to make it very clear to my friend Jim, and I know he's just kidding around a little bit, but he may not be, you never know. But listen, back to a little bit more serious side of this. There's a lot that goes into this, and yes, the federal government does have a role to play, and it is our job as provincial politicians to keep the federal government accountable, and we are doing that. We asked the federal government to lower their gas taxes. They wouldn't do it. So we have gone ahead, and on July 1st, we'll see an over a 5-cent reduction per liter on the taxes here in Ontario. We are raising the minimum wage. We are getting rid of provincial income tax for earners that are under $50,000. We're trying our best to do what we can with the tools that we have here in the province to be able to do this. But it really, really does boil down to the federal government making some really key decisions that are going to impact what happens with inflation, with the cost of living over the next little while. So I can tell you from a provincial government perspective and from myself and from a progressive conservative perspective, we want to do everything we can to put more money back in people's pockets.
We've already started doing that, and we'll continue to do it on June 2nd. Thank you very much, Randy.
Thanks, Mike. Our final question for the evening, I think, revisits what the first question just didn't do quite justice to, and that is healthcare. We've certainly seen how challenged our healthcare system has been on so many different levels, but something that existed both pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, and now during whatever term we apply to this era that we're living in, is the shortage of family doctors. People just can't get a family doctor, especially in this region. If elected, what would your party do to try to increase the availability of family doctors to the residents of Kitchener-Conestoga? And Karen, could you start us off on that?
Thank you. Healthcare is a big one. We saw how important healthcare was throughout the pandemic. When I've been connecting with folks in the community, I've had several nurses that I've had the pleasure to chat with, and they tell me stories about what it's like to be a nurse in a hospital during this time. And it is not great, to say the least. There have been nurses that have left the field significantly because of the working conditions, because of Bill 124, which limits their ability to increase their wages. They have newly trained nurses leaving the field because the conditions are so bad. So it is not in a good way right now from what folks in the community have been telling me. As far as the family doctor, we know that without family practitioners, that medical conditions go unaddressed and end up in our emergency rooms. That is the only place that folks have to go, and that is very expensive. There has not been a lot of foresight most recently with our provincial government to foresee some of these things that are going to have long-term impacts and, quite frankly, be very expensive for the province and for the community. So addressing family doctor shortages is something that I'm hearing tonight we need to look closely at in order to ensure that people are getting the health care that they need and getting the services they need so that our community is healthy, happy, safe, supported. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Mike, could you continue the discussion on the shortage of family doctors in our riding?
Yeah, I think it's something that we've talked about for many years. And quite frankly, the previous government didn't do a good enough job of addressing it. And I think there's an interesting thing though. There's such a focus on doctors, but when you look at kind of whole health and looking at different ways that people approach this, and it's far beyond it for me to actually agree with Karen, but we're actually gonna focus on something very similar here for a minute. And when we see what's happening with our inner city health teams, what we see what's happening with some of the, I'll use shelter care as an example. House of Friendship does an amazing job in Kitchener, and something I've been very proud to support over the last couple of years. And seeing the jobs they're doing with wraparound services, keeping people out of hospitals. But it's not just about doctors. It's about nurse practitioner-led clinics. And this is something that the community has really rallied around here in Waterloo Region over the last little while. And a family doctor may not be able to solve all your problems, but the main idea is to try and keep people, like Karen said, out of the hospital. If there is a way to help them downstream before an issue gets bigger, festers, puts them into the hospital, maybe because they don't have access to a family doctor or health practitioner. There's a lot of other things that we need to look at to address this overall problem with healthcare here in the province. And I think, yes, focusing on doctors absolutely is a big one, but we need to look at different ways to expand nursing care here in the province and build in wraparound services to a lot of the other organizations that we see here in Waterloo Region. So I think there's certainly more to do on this, and I know that we're looking forward to having many further discussions on it. Thanks, Rick.
All right, Mike, thanks. Jim, can you continue the discussion on family doctors?
I find it hypocritical to hear Doug Ford, Stephen Del Duca, and Andrea Horvath claim that they're going to fix the healthcare system after 20 years of watching it decline under Liberal and PC governments, and after they advocated for and were okay with nurses getting fired from their jobs because they did not want to toe the line of the government with some mandates that the government allowed those in charge of hospitals and other healthcare operations to take. Nurses getting fired from their jobs during a pandemic, which also increased the backlog of procedures when the situation could have been alleviated by expanding early treatment for COVID-19. So I find it totally hypocritical. I know the value and the importance of a family doctor firsthand. In 2020, I had pain in my femur. I thought it was, I don't know, getting older or the grief with establishment party politics or weight gain, I don't know. But my family doctor suspected something different. And she sent me for an ultrasound at the hospital where it was revealed I had the same cancer as Terry Fox. And she rushed me down to an appointment in Mount Sinai in our healthcare system where for almost a year I underwent 3 surgeries and 6 rounds of chemo. And thanks to our healthcare, the people in our healthcare system and their expertise and the nurses and the doctors, I didn't lose my leg. And I was able to continue with a quality of life and build a new political party where we have 124 candidates while getting better and getting back on my feet. So we have to do everything we can to make sure people have access to family doctors because they are the front line. And the final thing I'll say, Randall, is our healthcare expenditures are going up by 6+% every year, and under Liberal and PC governments, the economy's been growing at 1%. And you know what that means? That means we're going to run out of money to pay for our healthcare services. The best way to secure healthcare in the future is to get our economy back on track, and that's what the New Blue Party of Ontario is going to do.
And Melanie, if you could finish up our discussion on family doctors.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, so healthcare is a big issue, so it's not just about doctors. It is a wraparound service with everyone in healthcare, from nurses, PSWs, doctors. In fact, we got a call at the campaign office today from a gentleman living in Kitchener, I believe, who's having trouble connecting with his doctor and wanted our advice and our help, and we will follow up with him. Part of our plan is to hire 100,000 new nurses, doctors, and other healthcare workers across the healthcare system, specifically looking at internationally trained workers. We will repeal Bill 124, which is a big deal for nurses as well. And we really need to take care of our healthcare frontline staff and treat them all with the dignity and pay them for the work that they are doing. I will continue to fight for that if elected every day going forward. Part of our plan also that was shared today was we will be redeveloping the Waterloo Regional Hospitals, so there'll be more work going into our hospitals as well. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Melanie. So we've reached that stage in our all candidates meeting tonight where I'll be asking the candidates to favor us with a closing statement, the order of which will be reverse of the opening statements. And so, Melanie, you still have the mic. Your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I will keep this brief. I won't have a whole lot to say here, but I'd like to thank Randy again and the new Hamburg Board of Trade for graciously hosting us this evening. I also want to thank the other candidates for coming out tonight and having this discussion on these issues facing all of us in Ontario and Kitchener-Conestoga. Kitchener-Conestoga is a unique riding with a mix of urban and rural communities. I have lived in both Kitchener and Woolwich Township, and I have chosen to raise my family in this beautiful community. I have met with many of you on the doorsteps, through phone conversations, in community groups from all parts of this riding. I have listened to your concerns and what you need from the provincial government. I am ready to take what I have heard to Queen's Park and be your representative in the legislature. Making the decision to put your name on a ballot requires courage and conviction. Earning your vote is more than asking you to check my name on a piece of paper. It is asking for your faith, asking to represent your values, and asking for your trust. I do not take that responsibility lightly, and I promise to work tirelessly on your behalf. I am not someone who is interested in playing political games, nor am I interested in using the election to boost my ego. I am sincerely running because I want to see the people of Kitchener-Conestoga represented by someone who will serve them with compassion. To earn your support, I am running a positive, future-focused campaign. I'm invested in genuinely listening and making decisions that work for you, your family, and your loved ones. I believe in the Ontario Liberal Party, and I am proud to stand behind the policy that prioritizes people. Thank you all very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Melanie. Karen, can you offer your closing statement to the group tonight?
Thank you so much. Thank you to the New Hamburg Board of Trade for organizing this event and for Randy for facilitating the conversation. I also want to thank all of you that came out. It is very lovely to see all of your faces here tonight. I have missed in-person gatherings, and I'm grateful for you to spend time with us this evening. I just felt like I was starting to get the nerves out and the cobwebs shaken out. So I'm kind of sad that we're almost wrapping up, to be totally truthful. I think what we've seen and heard tonight are conversations about things that are broken, quite frankly. Healthcare system, long-term care, seniors care, education we didn't get an opportunity to talk about, and the climate crisis. There are a lot of things that need to be fixed. I am ready to roll up my sleeves. I am ready to get to work. I have amazing colleagues in Waterloo Region that are sitting MPPs and candidates with the New Democratic Party. I am set to listen. As I mentioned at my opening statement, I'm a listener. And so I believe that if we collaborate together, I take what you tell me, your feedback, and I advocate for you at Queen's Park. That is how I view my role. I'm not here to tell you what you need. I'm not here to tell you what you should have. I'm here to listen to you and take that back and advocate at Queen's Park. As I said earlier, there are a lot of things that are broken, and I know that all of you in this room do not want to go back. We don't want to go backwards. We are looking forward. We are looking to fix the things that are broken, and the plan that the NDP have in place is ready to address just that. Currently, the NDP need 10 more seats to form a government that cares about people, to form a government that fights, that rolls up their sleeves and advocates for everyone. So I'm very excited, again, to be here, to be representing the NDP, and grateful for all of you and your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Jim, your closing statement, please.
My parents picked Ontario as the place to move and build a brighter future for their family because there were some values and principles here that they couldn't find anywhere else in the world. And today you've heard all four of us give you different opinions on policy, and surely you're not going to like, some of you are not going to like some of the things I said. Standing up against critical race theory, fighting against the carbon tax, fighting against voter fraud in internal party elections, or our perspective on how COVID lockdowns and mandates were handled. But surely I think we can all agree that our political system in Ontario depends on allowing for different ideas to be put to the public space in debate and then a vote internally in political parties in every 4 years. But in my family's experience, standing up for what we believed in and what we thought was common in Ontario resulted in me getting sued by the PC party. Me getting handed a convention where voter fraud determined the other guy was better because that's who the premier wanted to be president of his PC party, where my wife was kicked out of caucus and then 19 of us were kicked out of the party. And oh, by the way, the PC party has solved voter fraud in their party. You know how? The premier picks all his candidates, not the people. It's a good way of getting rid of voter fraud, just get rid of all internal party elections. Surely that is not the way in our political system in Ontario. Disagreements over party policies are to be handled. Not shutting down the democratic process and handing it over to lobbyists who are in business with one another and control the establishment parties. And so fundamentally what this vote is about is restoring the democratic process in Queen's Park. Because if we can't do that, then what we're debating here today won't matter. Because when we get to Queen's Park, the one of us who's lucky, it'll be others who dictate the show. The New Blue Party was created to send a message that the way things are going at Queen's Park is not okay, that the legislature belongs to the voters of every constituency, and that the MPP that Kitchener-Conestoga sends is supposed to be a voice for the residents of Kitchener-Conestoga and the riding, and not the other way around. Not a voice from Toronto coming here to tell you what the policy is. So you may disagree with me on my position on some things, and you may agree with me on others. But fundamentally, if you want to send a message to the establishment political parties that it is not okay to hijack democracy and kick people out of the process and shut people out just because they voice a disagreement or for having the audacity to fight voter fraud, then I ask for your support as your candidate in this election. I ask you to come by our office in Elmira because we need help, because there's not going to be any shortcuts for the New Blue Party of Ontario or for me. Everything I've done in politics and outside of politics has been step by step, one step at a time. There's no elevator fighting through this system that's going to take us from floor one to the top. So I need your help to knock on doors, put out lawn signs, and send the message to the establishment that democracy must be restored in Ontario provincial politics at Queen's Park. Thank you everybody for taking the time to listen. Thank you for taking the time here to listen. And thank you, Randall, for inviting me and organizing this event. And thank you for the other candidates on the stage today. God bless.
Thanks, Jim. And Mike, the final word goes to you for your closing statement, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Randy, and thanks, Lyle, and the whole team at the New Hamburg Board of Trade for putting this on. It's really great to see so many familiar faces tonight within the community, and of course, I'm grateful to fellow candidates for being here as well. It's interesting. I often get asked why I got into politics, and obviously, in my 37 years of life, I've kind of been in politics for all 37 of them. But it really all started when I moved here, gosh, it's almost 10 years ago now, from a little town of North Bay, Ontario. And my wife, who's in the back, Kim, and I, and our 3 kids at the time, moved here to open a small business. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity in Northern Ontario, and we thought that, given the fact that Kim's parents came here, or sorry, not Kim's parents, but Kim's grandparents came here from the Netherlands back in the 1960s, I believe, 1963 or somewhere in that neighborhood. This is the area that they chose to call home. And so, we had some ties to the community. We thought that it was thriving and growing, and this is a place that we wanted to raise our family. We've subsequently had 2 more kids since we've been here to round out the 5. I know it seems a little crazy at 37 to have 5 kids, but we've got a wonderful family, and I love them to death. And actually, 2 of my sons' birthday is tomorrow, which is kind of exciting. They're both born 3 years apart on the same day on May 10th. So this kind of leads me into why I'm here. And it's for my kids. It's for your kids and your grandkids. And to make sure that we leave this province a better place for them. And what that means is smartly investing at the grassroots level to ensure that people in the region have access to the support they need and living fulfilling lives, and of course having good jobs. This PC team and PC government, we're building healthcare, we're building long-term care, we're making it more robust and more responsive. We're investing in infrastructure to keep goods and people and services moving so that businesses can thrive, so that people, our neighbors, our friends, and our kids, as I mentioned, have an opportunity to thrive. And I just want to go back just quickly. I did highlight earlier in my opening remarks, but I just want to reaffirm a few of the things that we, as the PC Party of Ontario, these are the things that we are looking forward to. We're not looking back. We're looking forward into the future. We're rebuilding Ontario's economy. We're working for workers. We're building highways and key infrastructure. We're keeping costs down. And of course, we have a plan to stay open. We can't go back into the past. We need to move forward into the future. And the way to do that is to get it done with a strong PC team at Queen's Park under the leadership of Doug Ford. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. And I think we're all gonna stick around, Randall, for a little bit to answer any questions at the back. And I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike. Before I offer some closing comments, I want to publicly thank the many people who helped organize this event. First of all, now that her duties are over and she won't be ringing the bell anymore, so I can talk as long as I want. Barb, thank you very much. The reason that we are not yelling at the very top of our voice is because the president of the Board of Trade set up physically set up this event today and got us the microphones that pretty much worked fairly well. Lyle Cressman, thank you very much. Lyle selling beer for $2 at Puttycombe. Oh no, I'm sorry. What's telling me about that, Lyle? Sorry about that. I also would like to thank the other volunteers of the New Hamburg Board of Trade, some who are here and some who are not, who helped work to cobble this first all candidates debate for Kitchener-Conestoga together on such short notice and help pass up the questions to me and so on. Regretfully, elections determine a winner, and those who don't win are considered to have lost. I want to suggest to all of you here that Mike, Jim, Melanie, and Karen are all winners. They are running for election to serve as our MPP for Kitchener-Conestoga. They have taken time out of their lives, money out of their bank accounts, time away from their families to do more than just throw your hat in the ring. You've captured the interest of many concerned citizens of New Hamburg and the surrounding area, as can be seen by this wonderful attendance tonight. Congratulations to you all. You are all winners. By your passion for civic life, we will continue to live and thrive in a wonderful township and in a wonderful province. I invite you all to stay around afterwards. As Mike alluded to, all 4 candidates will be back at the back of the hall, able to interact with you and so on. I wish you safe travels home, and most importantly, on June the 8th, vote.
Second.
Vote on the 2nd. Don't wait till the 8th. Go to the 2nd. Thanks. I need a drink.